hard is it to get a French bank account for real? Yeah. There are so many horror stories out there in the expat forums and the Facebook groups about this problem.
Yeah. But at least, I mean, I realize this isn't universal, but in our experience, those we've worked with, and like lots of emails we get when people are super excited because they opened a bank account and it went well, I'm beginning to think this is actually becoming a little bit of an old wives' tale.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like it. So here in this video, we're going to cover why your US bank account won't be enough for your life in France, how to get an account that will work in France before you're even a resident, and finally, how to choose the best bank in France for you.
Hi, I'm Raina.
I'm Jason.
We are Baguette Bound, an American family living in the southwest of France since 2022. We talk about moving, adjusting, and enjoying life in France.
Okay, first thing. Why is getting a French bank account such a big deal? Why can't you just keep using your US accounts, your US cards? Why do people say it's so difficult for Americans specifically, to open up a French account once they're here?
Yeah, we're all for things that simplify your life, but you are gonna need a European bank account because the systems are different and they won't talk to each other. So the US uses routing numbers, you know, like your checking account routing number, whereas Europe uses a system where accounts have something called an IBAN number.
IBAN, IBAN.
You need this type of account to communicate with things in Europe.
The French banking system.
The French banking system.
The European banking system.
The Europeans, yeah, exactly. Sorry. Okay, now sometimes people will be like, I have a workaround because I don't want to deal with this.
You're thinking.
Yeah, which is I'll set up all of my stuff with my US credit card that has like good exchange rates and probably gives you airline miles. And then...
Yeah, and just pay it right out of your US accounts you've already got set up, right? It's simple. You've been to Europe before. You use your credit card, no problem.
Right. Unfortunately, that actually won't work very well long-term in France because a lot of the online systems with recurrent billing, and we're talking stuff that like most everybody is going to have to pay, electric, water, phone bill, they are not set up to accept like a credit or debit card number. They're actually set up to accept only a banking IBAN number because it's customary here for all of that kind of recurring stuff. You have to like sign a release and it gets drafted right out of your checking account. So it's not going to work to use a credit card or even a debit card number that might be associated with an European number. It has to be the bank account IBAN number.
Yeah. Also, when you try to enroll in the French public health insurance system, for things like reimbursements, you're going to need a bank account with an IBAN number linked to your personal health insurance account in order to be reimbursed. You must have that IBAN account ready to go in order to first set up your French public healthcare account. They won't let you in the door if you can't show them a IBAN bank.
Right, and just because this is probably really confusing, yes, it's true. Insurance companies actually send you money here.
It doesn't feel like you're getting paid, but it is better.
Yeah, but to get those deposits and receive them, they have to have a place to send them.
And lastly, a very common way to pay rent or for just general services is to send money directly from your bank account to the other parties. There's no use of payment systems or payment apps like Zelle or other cash apps that people in the US often use to transmit money back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, that's how like just a direct bank transfer is how I paid the guy who came and did all of our spring shrub trimming the other day, just like straight from our bank account to him. That's how I pay my Pilates instructor.
Yeah, when fuel gets dropped off every winter, we just send him a direct transfer.
Well, originally he wanted a check. They still use checks here.
Sometimes.
While we're on banking. But so all that to say though, all of this just requires an IBAN number. It doesn't. And this IBAN number does not have to be associated with a French brick and mortar bank from day one. So you've got other options.
You do have other options. Okay, so you can get an IBAN number with accounts like Wise, Revolut, or BNP Paribas, which offers non-resident accounts. Those are all options. You can set all three of these up using your US address, your US phone number. You can do it from your couch in the United States. It's no problem to do it well in advance before you arrive in France.
Right.
Wise and Revolut, they offer multiple currencies. Their primary focus is like currency exchange. and they offer very easy, cost-effective transfers between different currencies.
Yeah, we've used Wise for years just because we found the interface where you can have a US routing number with dollars in it account and a euro with an IBAN number account really convenient. But I have to say, we had a really bad experience recently with the customer service for our business account. So we are likely switching to Revolut for that coming up in the coming months. We haven't really had any problems with our Wise personal account, but at this point, based on that, I would not recommend them for if you're coming to France on like an entrepreneur visa and setting up a business account. I wouldn't recommend Wise for the business accounts.
True. Wise and Revolut, however, are good options that you can set up very easily. You can get that IBAN number that you need and it can help you exchange money between two currencies.
Right.
Another option is using the BNP Paribas International Desk with English-speaking agents to help you set up a non-resident account. And again, you don't need a go-between or you don't need to pay anyone to connect you with BNP. You can do this through their site.
Yeah.
Later, after you are living here in France, after you've arrived, you can convert this non-resident account into a regular old checking account that every French person has.
Right. Now, the catch with this BNP Paribas non-resident account is that you're going to be required to deposit anywhere from 15,000 to 30,000 euros to open the account and then maintain that balance as long as it's classified as a non-resident account.
Yeah, some people opt for the BNP account because despite the high deposit requirements and the need to keep that money in there until you're settled here, they really want to start a relationship with a recognized French bank with real brick and mortar locations that you could walk to.
Yeah.
Plus, you get a French IBAN number, the French IBAN number. And you'll know this because when you look at the code, it's not just numbers, but the first two digits of the IBAN are a country code. So yours might start with FR for a French IBAN.
So, is it important to have the FR?
I don't know if it's important or not, but legally, it's not required. Companies absolutely cannot reject or discriminate based on the country of origin of your IBAN. So,
yeah, assuming it's from a compatible country.
Sure. If it's a legitimate account, it doesn't matter if it's a Belgian IBAN or a German IBAN or a United Kingdom IBAN. All of those work perfectly fine and are legally required to be accepted everywhere by everyone. Now, in practice, there are definitely some systems, some processes that are old and haven't been updated, where we've seen it before where the FR as the first two digits in the IBAN code are already like hard copy, hard
just
pasted.
in there, yeah.
They're uneditable fields in the IBAN. So as you type in your Belgian IBAN number, it doesn't work because it starts with FR and you can't change that. So that's a specific company problem, not a regulation problem. So you may run into that for companies that maybe haven't updated their systems recently, but I wouldn't consider that to be a big deal either.
Yeah. And to note, Revolut actually is in the midst of opening an official like French brand saying getting like all accredited with the French banking system. So even if you open an account and you're not in France, once you're here, you can convert it into a French account and you'll have the FR with one of those.
Yeah, and believe me, you will know about the status of Revolut and their French banking application because Revolut ads are everywhere.
They are.
Everywhere.
Like every French rugby player, has their Revolut card.
Yeah, they all have their Revolut card.
It's like on all these advertisements.
Yeah. So, all of this to say that you can stop stressing about getting an account that you'll be able to use as you're setting up your life here in France, because there are several good options that you can access, start, open up, fund with cash before you even arrive.
Yeah, I actually think compared to some other things, this is probably the least stressful thing at this point, now that there's like all these other options. Okay, but once you're living here and you're settling in, you are going to want to establish a relationship with a local bank.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, just so many things happen here based on relationships, and you never know what you might need in the future. So once you're in the place you know you're going to be, you'll want to open a local account. Now, this is where I think a lot of the horror stories start with this rumor that like French banks won't take Americans. There is some truth to this.
There's a kernel, a little grain here.
Yeah, because any bank that has a customer who's a U.S. citizen has to comply with reporting requirements to the U.S. government. It has to do with like anti-money laundering laws. So any bank that takes an American customer, I mean, the reality is we are a little higher maintenance than your average customer, and that's just kind of what it is.
Yeah.
But
But if you are a French resident, and you will be a French resident if you are here on a long-term visa, if you're a French resident, the French bank cannot legally refuse you solely based on your nationality, right? So you're in the door. But it doesn't mean they can't make your life more difficult by asking for all kinds of paperwork or documentation that might be a challenge to provide. So if you feel like you're getting this kind of runaround, just take the hint that they don't want to help Americans and go to the bank next door.
Yeah, there's no reason to make a thing out of this because there's so many banks. I mean, even in our little town, we got 3. So there's always another option. And, you know, once you get here, if you know another American who has a bank account, ask them where they bank. Yeah. Once they got one American, they might as well have 20.
We always joke it's always best to be the second American at the bank and everything's fine. Yeah. And, you know, one thing to know that even in the normal process to open up a bank account where the bank really wants you to join is likely to be, I don't know, a little more involved than what you're maybe accustomed to in the U.S.
Like everything in France, for better or worse.
For better or worse.
Part of me loves it and part of me's like, oh.
Yeah. So this isn't complicated. I would definitely not call it burdensome, but there's just a few more steps involved. Maybe think back to opening an account back in the U.S. back in the 90s, maybe. You know, you had to actually go to an appointment. You had to bring actual papers with you. So like here in France, right, you're going to have to bring your passport, a proof of address, a phone number you have to provide. You might have to bring your U.S. tax information. Make sure you've got a copy of those.
Like your return.
They're all fairly simple things, and make sure they should give you a list of documents from the bank before you go to your appointment. Make sure you get that before you walk in so you know exactly what to bring.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to be there for an hour or 2.
Probably.
You know, you're going to have to choose your account and you're going to
sign your paperwork.
Right,
One thing to know, there is no free checking in France. And you're going to have to choose between a few different type of accounts that may have some different options than you're used to.
Yeah, these could be anything from, I mean, it's going to vary wildly between bank and branch and card and account, but like insurance, I've seen a lot of like insurance offers or maybe like travel stuff.
Some travel cost stuff in there.
Discounts for things, maybe differences in the amount you can like pull out.
Those are differences,
things like that.
Yeah, and the fees will vary with the different options that you choose.
Exactly. And while we're on this topic, we should talk about a few other differences while we're on the topic of like no free checking like in the US. Because there's some things, it's not so different, but there are some subtle differences that surprised me being someone who had spent my entire banking life in the US.
Yeah, I think definitely the biggest one is just credit cards. You know, the credit cards, as we know them in the US at least, where you can buy anything you want up to your limit on completely unsecured credit. You can choose how much you want to pay each month as long as you make the minimum payment. You know, they can be great for airline miles or getting points on things. These types of cards are very, very uncommon in France, right?
Yeah.
What you will see instead, something that's similar, there are checking accounts that might act more like an old school charge card, meaning that you've got an electronic card, and as you use it through the month, you kind of have 2 options. As you make charges, that balance can be automatically deducted from your balance. You know,
kind of same as in the US.
You know, as you charge. Or you could have all of these electronic things add up during the month, all these electronic charges add up and only be deducted from your balance 1 time or 2 times. So you've kind of got some flexibility. You can't run a balance, but at least the charges will only come out 1 or 2 days each month.
I remember our bank officer said this is really popular for people who have like inconsistent income that fluctuates. So they know at the end of the month they'll have enough money, but they don't know when it's going to come in through the month. Like sometimes people would opt for that. But the thing that I thought was strange was when we signed up for our account, where it's like a charge card that gets taken out at the end of the month, but it's still like you have to have the money, you can't go over. There's no like actual credit. But that was what our bank officer was calling a credit card. And
yeah, she did make the comparison. It's like the credit card in the United States.
We were like, no. Anyway, okay. And then another difference is the limits on how much of your own money you can spend.
Yeah, it's not just how much you can withdraw in cash, which is maybe normal in the US. That exists too.
Right.
But there are limits on how much you can spend on your card throughout the month. And this seemed pretty strange because if I have money, if I have a balance in my checking account, I should be able to spend all of it up till I have zero left, right?
Yeah, like this still makes no sense to me. I don't understand. I would love to know why this is a thing, but it's very common with French accounts.
Yeah.
So you'll want to ask about this when you set up your account, because like literally it could be like sometimes it's a dollar amount, sometimes it's a percentage. But like, for example, especially when you first get here, I mean, let's say you order a couch at the beginning of the month and it's it's pricey. And then like the next time you go to use your card, so you've hit the limit for how much you can spend, even though you've got more money in your account. And the next time you go to MetroCard, your card just doesn't work, even though there's money in it. It's like, I don't know. Sorry. Okay. I'm getting on a soapbox because it just doesn't make sense to me.
It's strange. It's just something to be aware of when you're setting up for these things.
Okay. Moving on.
I mean, something to do is to look at your options before you go.
Yeah.
When you sit down to open up this account, you will probably be presented with all these options as well. Just take your time, ask questions, make sure you understand what the requirements are, what the limits are, before you sign up, because you'll have options. Just don't feel like you've got to hurry up and make a decision.
Or when you ask them to send you, you're going to make the appointment ahead of time, right? You won't be able to just walk into the bank and open an account. You're probably going to have to make an appointment to do this. And when you do that and you ask for the list of required things, ask for what your options are going to be, because you want to be able to look at them ahead of time. And so,
lastly, I think the question we get asked maybe most frequently, like from clients, is what's the best French bank for me? And you know what? The answer is, it's really pretty simple. The best bank account for you is the one that will give you an account and is convenient to where you are living. That's all. And I know that this is really, at least for me, this is a very unsatisfying answer to give. And I feel like it's an unsatisfying answer to receive, because we often feel like it's maybe wrong to choose something, especially a financial decision, to make a financial decision simply for simplicity's sake, solely for simplicity's sake.
Well, you've probably been told your whole adult life, like optimize, 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 right? How many of us have switched banks because like in the US, like someone's always tempting you with like bonus miles or better interest rate or like...
Yeah, you got to let go of that need to optimize everything. And just know that there are lots of good banks here in France that want to work with you, because you're going to have to make so many other decisions in those first few months and even in those first few years after you get here. In the long run, your happiness here in France, your financial stability will not matter one bit if you choose the second or third or the sixth best bank for your specific situation. It just won't matter. You might miss out on a slightly different interest rate. You might pay a few extra dollars in fees. You might not be able to get that Metro card when you've hit the balance, when you've charged that couch. But finding something that works well enough and moving on to those much more important decisions is really critical at the beginning. And after you figure out housing, your veterinary care, whether or not you need a car, and what's going to take a lot of time? Figuring out which mustard is actually edible and is not going to cause your sinuses and tear ducts to like fall out of your head.
If you've been here a few months, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah. After you figure that stuff out, come back at that point and then optimize your bank choice. Voila.
Thanks for watching and good
bientôt.
luck.